Burks splits the double team, hangs in the air, underhand scoop up and in, slithering and sliding to the rack. It's Alec Burks for two.
This is Gordon Hayward. We are ready to tip it off. Are you? Let's do this.
The NBA 5 coming up. Let's an in-depth look at pace of play. What is really fast pace of play? Who were the fastest and slowest last year? It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip-Off. How are you? Welcome to Tip-Off. It is a good Friday morning to you. By the time we talk Monday, we'll have a scrimmage coming and a preseason game on Tuesday. I hope everyone is well. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is our little fun morning podcast that we call Tip-Off. I forgot my coffee in the other room. What am I going to do? What do we got coming up on the show? No practice for the Jazz yesterday, so instead I've done a breakdown of fast break play and what's going on with that. We'll look at that. Also, so that'll be our breakdown today. We'll do our regular NBA 5, and we'll check the NBA rank, which I forgot to check to see if anybody else came in. I can't imagine after Canner went to 154, Favors at 162, and Exum at 173, that we're going to have my next guess I had on NBA rank was that Trey comes in here pretty soon. Maybe he comes in between 121 and 140. I would guess he breaks the top 100 play. I don't know, actually. So I forgot to check that. I'm checking it right now as we speak. I don't know. Harrison Barnes, Tristan Thompson, Ray Allen. I would guess Trey might be in this group somewhere. And Gorgie Dang, he's going to have a good year if they give him a chance. He's really playing well. Carlos Boozer's dropped all the way to 139. Nope. Our good friend Trey Burke ahead of Brandon Knight in point guards in the NBA. He'll probably be in the next group. I'm not sure he breaks the top 100. I hope you, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Google+, look at this little bottom thing I got. Thank you very much to Chris Romreal. Rome Real, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not sure, but really cool. He built this for me. A lot of people send me music. This is becoming a crowdsourcing product. I think it's awesome. So I really like that. It's a nice job by Chris on that, so we'll keep that up there. Appreciate it very much. Thanks. I mean, I just don't have the skills to do these kind of things, so it's so cool when you guys do that. I want to get it right into it. That's kind of my quest to you guys, but I do want to share one thing as well. Along the way. Cool day for just kind of give you guys the background of how some of this all works. So I actually sent the family away for the weekend. They're gone, so I have just so much work to do. One of the things is I finally have edited all of the production pieces from all of our players that we did on production day, so that got that done about 3:34 last night. But I had a cool night last night. We have 5 intern or broadcast assistants we've hired this year. These are the up-and-coming young broadcasters of Utah. They all have different resumes that do from different spots, and some of them, just actually all of them have these great resumes, cool stories. And we had our orientation yesterday, kind of let them know what they were in for, and then went out for dinner. And I just had a blast. It's just so fun for me. I know I'm 44, but I sometimes think I'm 23 until they start asking me stories about things and realize that I'm ancient. But I had a great time with this crew. It's a neat group. It's kind of the behind-the-scenes group. These are the next generation of great broadcasters. I'm very prideful of what over the 22 years of my career now, I'm kind of at the halfway point where I've worked as many years as I haven't in this business, where we've, hopefully much more than any good call about Trey Burke slithering to the lane, the legacy is building up some careers and helping some people develop, and I think we've got a good group to do that again with. So I just wanted to share that. We went out, had a nice dinner last night, and it's neat. It's fun to see that energy and that youthfulness, and it's good for me, and appreciate all those people. I got really a fortunate experience. I interviewed 22 people. We had over 100 resumes for the broadcast assistant job. I wish that I could have interviewed everyone along the way, but it was neat to meet everybody, and some of them were tip-off listeners. So for those of you out there, you know who you are. It was fun to meet you, and hopefully you felt the correspondence was professional. I try to personally call each and every single person we interview or email everyone. If for some reason you applied and you haven't heard from me, I've made a mistake, so please let me know. All right, let's do it. Let's get into the NBA 5. How about this story? Jamal Crawford threw a bachelor party this summer. This just came out. So he had a bachelor party. What did he decide to do for his bachelor party? He created Doug Christie created Seattle Pro-Am, and on the backside of Seattle Pro-Am. It was Jamal Crawford's taking over. So for his bachelor party, he decides to tweet out that at midnight on the night before his wedding, they're going to have a Rainier Beach, which is the gym, high school. They're going to open it up, and suddenly you had this game with Matt Barnes and all the Seattleites and Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and all of going on in Seattle. Pro-Am suddenly busted out. The just huge crowd came at midnight to watch these guys play. Local kid, high school kid at 17 years old, dropped 43 in the game. Nate Robinson and Isaiah Thomas were nursing injuries, and they coached it. But just tells you a lot about how great a guy Jamal Crawford is, and cool basketball at the roots story left over from this summer. A little scary news out of Portland. Wesley Matthews experienced an irregular heartbeat for the second time in as many years. Matthews left midway through practice on Wednesday, felt the irregular heartbeat. He said it corrected itself. He then went up back to the cardiovascular people, and where he had the electric cardiovascular procedure last year to make sure everything was good. And he said, quote, "I was in there this morning. They did all the scans and tests, and it looked like a lab rat again, but everything's cool. Now we're going to ease back into it, optimistic, excited to get it back out there." So this is the second straight year this has happened to Wesley. Obviously, we all care deeply about Wesley with his time from the Jazz and what a great guy he is, and his wonderful family with Pam Moore, his mom, and everything hopefully should be good there. But let's keep an eye on that and wish him the best. Great CBS Sportsline story, CBS Sports story, that's an old reference, by Ken Berger about Dave Blatt, the Cleveland Cavaliers head coach coming over from Europe and playing. I mean, Quinn's using a huge amount of Europe stuff. This is very... kind of the game is going very European here. Sitting at practice watching Quinn and talking to people while at practice who've been in Europe, they're saying these are very much European sets. A lot of what they're running, the spacing, the five out, the open post, those kind of things. What's interesting the other day, Ken, and this just tells you a little bit about LeBron in the story, is that David Blatt ended practice, and then 30 minutes afterwards, they walked back out, and there was LeBron leading his teammates on the first day through the practice, through how things were supposed to be done. LeBron's got this incredible photogenic memory. He's got a remarkable recall of games, and clearly he's probably be able to do the same. He's really a basketball savant. And so here he is with Cleveland doing the same things, taking them through, working them through the various sets. DeMarcus Cousins' storyline out of Sacramento is the new maturity and all this. I got to tell you, I'm not buying it. I hope it's true for his case because he could be so talented. And his draft week, when he was drafted, I had a GM in the league who said to me, there's either going to be 10 All-Star games or 10 tombstones behind him. He's got 5 tombstones behind him already with coaches and GMs that he's left behind. He told Jason Jones, Sacramento Bee reporter, he's going to have no more than 5 technicals this year. We'll see. The other angle on this whole thing, I would say, I don't think the FIBA experience is one that tells you that he's suddenly matured. I mean, there was moments in that where he was on the edge, but you get tired in this league, and that's when you're going to have problems. That's when you're going to have a hard time controlling your temper if you're temper-filled. You're getting pestered. Guys in this league know it. Guys are trying to take it to him. All those kind of things. I think it's a very difficult concept to think that DeMarcus is suddenly going to change who he is. Maybe he'll mature a little bit. Maybe it'll get better. It'd be great for him. It'd be good for Sacramento because they've invested an awful lot in him, and he's their future, and I'm not sure that I necessarily would buy that that's all going to come together. A few weeks ago, it was an interesting story by Bruce Bowen killed Kevin McHale about James Harden's defense. Bowen came out and said, defense is something you have to practice every day, especially rotations. We went our rotations every day all 8 years in San Antonio. You would think Tim, Tony, Manu all knew they're supposed to be, but others don't. You have to become as familiar as we were. That's why I go to the principals. Go back to OKC, and they're playing the Lakers, and he guarded Kobe pretty well. That's why I say what's going on in Houston is something else. So he's blaming McHale for the defense, basically claiming that at some point along the way he did fairly decent defensive work along the way. I'm not sure if I really buy that entirely. And the best one of the week that's taken place, I don't want to get lost this week, was early in the week, the feud between Daryl Morey and Mark Cuban. Cuban and Morey have been just going back and forth. They've been stealing guys' personnel, stealing players. Morey took a run at Dirk. Now Dallas went and took Chandler Parsons. Cuban made some comments, and Daryl Morey fired back. We've been pretty good. I think we're doing a smart thing to take on a rival. I think he's doing we've been pretty good, and I think he, speaking of Cuban, is doing a smart thing to take on a rival. He should want to beat up on San Antonio too, but it's hard to paint the Spurs that way. So he's directed his bully pulpit onto us. Our owner stays above the fray, says Morey, so I'm outgunned, honestly. But let's be clear. If the money's equal between the Rockets and Mavericks, I think players are picking Houston. Every time for Dwight Howard, I just don't think it's a hard choice between us and Dallas. Big shot. If you want to win, you're going to want to join our organization. We have a first-team NBA, All-NBA player in his prime in Harden. They have an enormously talented superstar in Dirk, but he's obviously not 24. Cuban went on to kind of rip Morey, claiming that he didn't care about chemistry, merits of team. It's kind of interesting because Cuban's as analytical as anyone else. Morey goes, I completely reject that. Our teams have had great chemistry. It's something we believe in. Hey, if Mark believes so much in chemistry, he wouldn't have busted up a title team for cap room. He's trying to reunite a lot of players and people now, bringing back Tyson Chandler from the title team. Maybe he's got some chemistry religion recently. Morey just killing him. He's tripled his analytics staff. He's equating analytics with not caring about chemistry. Well, he's tripling down on it. I think he's smart to paint a competitor in a negative light, but none of those statements are lining up. He says that we're the team you sign with, and then we'll trade you. When that's what he said he would have done with Dwight. We don't care about chemistry, but we busted up a championship team for what he hoped would be cap room could do for him. Good shots all the way around from Daryl Morey, and that is your NBA 5.
Hi, Jazz Nation. This is Enes Kanter. Thanks for being the best fans in the NBA.
All right, let's dig into pace. Everything Quinn is saying is about pace of play, playing with pace. Phoenix is doing their training camp at a higher altitude this year. I always think the Jazz should train in Park City just to get a little higher. And trying to play with a faster pace than last year. They were 9th in the league in pace of play. I don't like pace of play numbers, honestly. Pace of play has some flaws to it. Dan Clayton actually did a nice piece last year explaining what those flaws are. So I'm going to look at pace of play a little differently. Phoenix, in my book, was, according to the Bloomberg numbers I have, was scored 18% of their points in the fast break last year. That doesn't mean they had the most fast breaks. That just means they were the most effective in the fast break, right? So they scored 18% of their points in the fast break. If you look at usage by shot clock, by the way, the teams who need some water. The teams who scored the most in the fast break last year were Phoenix, Philadelphia, Detroit, surprising, Clippers, and the Rockets. Phoenix, Philadelphia, Detroit, the Clippers, and the Rockets were the top 5 in percentage of scoring in the fast break. The bottom 5 were the Knicks, the Nets, the Raptors, the Pacers, and the Blazers. So that's not percentage of possessions used or anything of that nature. That is simply the percentage of your scoring. Let's take a look at the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. Okay, you're really running if you use the first 5. Similar names come up. Philadelphia, Detroit, and Phoenix used 20% of their possessions last year in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. The Clippers were at 18%. And then Houston, Denver, Atlanta, and Oklahoma City were all at 17%. So those are the teams that got out the most. The slowest teams, pretty big difference here. Chicago, Memphis, Brooklyn, and New York were at 11%. The Jazz, by the way, were at 13%. There's also an angle of effectiveness, right? Philadelphia used 20% of their possessions in the fast break, but only had 1.1 points per possession. They were terrible. The best team in the league, efficiency-wise, in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock last year was Washington at 1.38 points per possession. Brooklyn was at 1.35 as rarely as they ran, and Miami was at 1.36. And the Clippers were at 1.35. So those are pretty good. Now, what really to me jumps out is the first 11 seconds of the shot clock, or first 10. Who used the most possessions? That's playing early. Might not be fast breaking. Quinn's going to define playing with pace as how you take every possession, the piece you're playing inside of the possession. But there's really something to be said. For example, here's a note. Points per possession In the first 5 seconds of a shot clock, 1.28. That's why everybody wants to play with pace. 1.28. In the next 5 seconds of the shot clock, points drop to, average in the league drops to 1.02. In the next 5 seconds of the shot clock, league average drops to 0.96. And in the final 6 seconds of the shot clock, it drops to 0.84. So 0.84 in the final 6, 0.96 in the previous 5, 1.02, and then the final 1.20. Okay? So as the shot clock goes on, the longer and deeper you get in the possession, the harder it is to score. It's why transition defense is so, frankly, so important. So who really were the fastest teams in the league, and were the Jazz really that slow last year, is what I'm heading toward here. So I just gave you the teams that ran, 20% of their possessions, they were in a fast break, 18. The slowest teams I gave you. So let's go to the next 5 seconds, because this is where it gets interesting. So Philadelphia used 44% of their possessions in the next 5 seconds from 13 to 18 on the clock. And was still way below average. I mean, they just were terrible. So they used 64% of their possessions in the first 11 seconds of the shot clock. Crazy. No one else was really even close. Denver was next, actually. Playing at altitude, smart. Brian Shaw trying to stay with George Karl's system. 58% of their possessions. 17% in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. 41% in the next 5 seconds of the shot clock. 58%, they were the second most. The next one, 56% were the Lakers, Mike D'Antoni. Oklahoma City was also at 56% of their possessions in that time period. Atlanta was at 55. Golden State. Oh, I slipped Golden State. Golden State was also at 58%. So Golden State was up with Denver and the Lakers at 58%. And most of those for Golden State and the Lakers are between 13 and 18 on the clock. So those are the teams that played really the fastest. In that next sequence, I haven't done enough. I could do some more math on this. I haven't done it yet. This is where the teams get good. The league average is 1.02, and Golden State's at 1.05, and Oklahoma City's at 1.05, and the Clippers are at 1.05, and Houston was incredible at this point at 1.14. This is where the really good offensive teams click in. Phoenix is 1.14, Miami's 1.14. This is Utah last year. Not only used the fewest possessions of any team in the NBA in this time period, but also were the worst efficiency-wise of any team in the NBA. This is really where Ty's offense, and I said it last year, this is not revisionist. You can call it flawed or whatever. There would be an initial push and then nothing to get into the next set, and very little would happen from 13 to 18 on the shot clock with seconds remaining, 13 to 18 seconds remaining. And we would delve into the back end of the shot clock. And we were also the singularly worst team in the NBA by a large margin, actually, in that time period. Points per possession was 0.88, and if you look around the rest of the way, we were down at, the next worst is, I think, Orlando at 0.93. This is really interesting, by the way, because this 13 to 18 seconds on the shot clock, you start looking at the efficiency numbers, this is where the best teams, to me, suddenly show up offensively. That's a huge amount of possessions used. And you get that, and Quinn talks about this all the time. You get that edge, and then you take advantage of that edge. The other one that's interesting is trying to look at what teams do in this. Are they taking jump shots? Are they driving to the basket? How are they using? This is where Quinn talks about attacking at the 45. You've got to penetrate. Chicago, who didn't use a lot, simply just never even attack the basket. If you go look at their drive numbers without Derrick Rose last year, they just get into an outside motion at this point, and very little happens. So who really were the slowest teams in the NBA? Well, 0 to 6 on the shot clock last year, the Jazz used 21% of their possessions. The slowest team in the NBA, the last 6 seconds of the shot clock. Trying to avoid that. Try to play with pace. Memphis, Chicago, Brooklyn, Miami were the next. It's interesting. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a correlation between when you use the shot clock and whether you are a good team or not. You can have a philosophy offensively, and then you still got to play defense and transition defense. Golden State used the fewest at 8%, Philadelphia at 9%, Oklahoma City at 11%, the Lakers at 12%, and Minnesota at 12%. Let's combine the two. So the final 12 seconds of the shot clock, right? We looked at the first 12 seconds of the shot clock, basically, or first 11, and now we look at 0 through 12. It's that 1 second's kind of funky. So who did what? The Jazz used the Jazz only used 40% of their possessions in the first 11 seconds of the shot clock. So naturally, suddenly you have the Jazz using 61% of their possessions last year in the final 12 seconds of the shot clock. That's the most in the NBA. Chicago was right with the Jazz at the same number, 61%. You're not playing with pace. You're getting in. You're trying to get set. We're getting into the post. We're working off of that. It was a different system. Frankly, the Jazz were pretty good at this. The last portion of the shot clock, the Jazz were better than the league average. This is what they did, and they were better than the league average at this. This is, it's not surprising who's the best at this stuff. It's superstar team. So the best is Miami at 7 to 12 seconds on the shot clock, and late in the shot clock is Miami, New York, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, interestingly, in the system that they ran last year. Those were the teams. The best late shot clock team in the NBA, really truly late shot clock team in the NBA, was Charlotte and San Antonio. They just, Charlotte's Al. You're able to get down there and do some of those kind of things late in the shot clock. I'm not sure they were the absolute best, and New York and Miami generally are in those numbers. You have those individual players to do that. So we had a weird combination of that. We didn't have those individual players, and we were at that point in the shot clock all of last year, but still executed it fairly well because that's what we did. That's how that team was built. That was trained. That's what they worked at. They played late shot clock basketball, and they played it pretty well. All right, at least, considering that's where they were better than otherwise. But you talk about playing with pace, truly the Jazz last year were, along with Chicago, used, there's a legitimacy to what's being talked about playing with pace, playing earlier, playing with a tempo. It's a different concept, and it's accurate. When Phoenix is talking about playing even faster, I wonder how they plan to do that, since Phoenix. And what I think Jeff's talking about is 51% of Phoenix's possessions last year were in the first half of the shot clock. Well, he probably wants that number up. He probably wants to be at the 58 number that Golden State, LA, and Denver are at. I don't know if anyone gets to 64 Philadelphia because they're just not even trying. So it's a little bit of a different number. So where do we get? Only 40% of our possessions last year were in the first 12 seconds of the shot clock. The first 12 seconds of the shot clock. Wow, that's when teams are at 58%, that's pretty low. So where can the Jazz get to this year? And that's what I think will be interesting. If you're really playing with pace and you're playing a little quicker, and suddenly we increase, 15% of our possessions, we get to where Quinn Snyder's club, as the assistant was last year, Atlanta at 55%. That's a lot. When you start thinking about this for a second, let's assume that you're going to play 90, 95 possessions a night. We'll call it 90 just because it's a little easier, and you're increasing that by 18%. Well, that's 18. That's, you're getting close to 15, 16, 17, 18 trips down, which instead of going in the last 5 to 10 seconds of the shot clock or going in the first 10, that's a stunning difference of what's going on. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's go to the questions. Are there any? Oh, there are. From Ucell, can Cantor play with pace in a passing system? It's a great question. We're going to find out. So what do you do about his extension if you're the Jazz? Pretty unclear whether he can play in this system, right? Can he play with pace? Can he run well enough? I don't know. We're going to find out. It's a great question. Does Dante shy away from contact? Not that I see, but he's not big. And let's see what happens as the year goes on, his body breaks down. I've actually seen Trey go to contact more in training camp than I saw at any point last year, so it might be an evolution. Good questions. Thank you very much. Justin Brown. I still think the Jazz are lacking in shooting. Yeah, they got Novak, but he won't play 25 minutes, won't. D's just collapse on the picks if no one can shoot. Yep. Shooting's going to be an issue. Play with enough pace, get an advantage early in a possession, keep the ball moving, keep it going, try to get some open looks. But, if we go back, I think I did the data last year, we did not shoot well on uncontested jumpers last year. That's, I don't know if I can find that again. Funny, I was pulling up something today, and so I actually saw this and was like, oh, I should go pull that and save it in some file. I don't know. I mean, I remember I did this research last year, and look at what I just found. Let's see if this opens up. The Jazz were one of the worst teams in the league last year at uncontested jumpers. Oh, here it is. Jazz last year on uncontested jumpers shot 38%. Only Charlotte, the Rockets, Detroit, and Philadelphia were worse. That may not change. The best uncontested jumping shooting team in the league was New York, Atlanta, San Antonio, Indiana, Portland, Dallas. They were all at 42%, and the Jazz were 38%. League average on an uncontested jumper is 40%. League average on a contested jumper is 34%. 6% difference just by contesting a shot. Good question, Justin. Thank you very much. James Hansen, if Dante's development is ahead of schedule this year, why would he be taking minutes from Alec or Trey? Too early, James. For one day, I say he's did a nice job. He had a good practice. I didn't say he was ahead of schedule. I just said he had a nice practice. He's playing well. He's doing things well. Let's get cool the Jets. Let Dante be. He's not taking anyone's minutes. If we play with the pace we want to play, these guys are going to be tired. I think guys are going to have a hard time playing more than 32, 33 minutes a night this way. There's going to have to be a need for that. Are players buying into playing defense? I don't think they have a choice, particularly transition defense. So I think so. I had done two-a-days on. I don't really know the answer to why practice was canceled. They had done two-a-days. They'll do two-a-days again today. I kind of think it's smart. Doc Rivers had I'm sure there's some, for I don't know the reasons, but for Doc Rivers had a great quote last year where he said, I can coach without their legs. I can't coach them without their minds. Paul Johansson, there's a lot of talk about Quinn being detail-oriented. Is he much more detail-oriented than Ty? What is the biggest difference that we as fans will notice between the coaches, besides the hair? I don't know if you'll notice that, right? So I think that's something. And it's just a different approach. I'm not even sure one's right or one's wrong. I mean, to some extent, Ty was very much the Jerry Sloan method of just trying to get through 82 games schedule and keep them. I mean, I don't know. I hate comparing because everyone's different. I mean, you're just going to see a totally different style of play is what's going to be obvious to you, and a quicker pace of play. So I think that's it. I don't think you'll notice the detail-oriented stuff. You might see some quick hooks every now and then if guys don't get back in transition in the early months of the season, though. Watching a bit of Toure Murray, I think his talent level might be very undervalued. What do you think? Is he not going to be in the rotation? What does he look like in open gym? Is it just shooting? From Oren Levy. These are good questions tonight. I think his talent. I'm just trying to figure out. I don't know what his talent level is that you're saying is undervalued. I think he's lost in between two positions. He's either a shooting guard or a point guard. He's neither, and so he's got to figure out how he's going to play. And he's not a very good shooter. So that's a hard game for him to figure out, and I think that's why we have him. Is can we develop into a shooter? Can he find a niche? Can in our system? Can he just play guard? Can we find some way that works for him? But I think that's kind of where it is. Let's go to Courtney Gardner. Do you expect Dante to take over Trey's starting role this year? Have you noticed that Trey has issues passing the ball inside? Most of his passes stay behind the three-point line. Also, if we don't try and keep Dante happy through his progression, will he stay? All right, Courtney, bunch of things in there. I understand we're always fearful of guys leaving, but I think you just have to do what's right. I don't think Dante will take over Trey's starting role this year. I just think that's not part of what this year is about. Dante's very young. He's really got to get the basics down. I mean, we're talking about body maintenance, nutrition, weight training, sleep, travel, the basics. The non-court stuff for him is totally foreign. That's really as important as anything else that he does this year. And so when he has bad nights and plays 15 minutes and doesn't do anything, I'm not going to fret over him. That has a great night, I wouldn't think it's the coming. I do think he's really skilled. He's got some special things to him. He's really quick. He's got some aspects of his game he's got to improve as time goes on. But those are going to be improved far more by the 5 basics off the floor. And that's where he's going to have to take things. Maybe, you'll always go slower than the player wants. But you can do the other thing, which is Cleveland just about destroyed their franchise until LeBron saved them by just turning the thing over to Kyrie, and they had no control over him. So that's not the answer either. So I think if you live in fear of a player returning, you're in trouble. Do you still think, I'm supposed to be on with DJ and PK. I got to go. See you guys. I missed 2 calls from DJ and PK. All right, I'm calling them back right now. See ya. That ends tip-off. I kind of got lost.